The throne room of the Valari Empire stretched for almost a mile. Walls made of black crystal rose, so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Golden light poured through windows carved in shapes that human eyes could not understand. This was the heart of the most powerful empire in the known galaxy. This was where Empress Nethara ruled over 17 star systems and billions of souls. But today, the Empress was not sitting on her throne. She was standing in the middle of the room, perfectly still, while her advisors kept their distance. They had learned long ago that when the Empress went quiet, death usually followed. Nethara was not like humans. She stood 12 feet tall. Her body was covered in a hard shell that shined like purple gemstones in the light. She had 4 arms, each ending in claws that could cut through steel. Her face had 2 huge eyes that saw everything, every movement, every flicker of fear, every lie. She had ruled for 300 years, and in all that time, no one had ever seen her afraid until now. "Say it again," she commanded. Her voice was soft. That made it worse. The guard who knelt before her was shaking. He was a veteran of 40 wars. He had killed enemies without counting. But right now, he wished he was anywhere else in the universe. "The princess is gone, my empress. The nursery chamber was breached during the solar storm. When we restored power, the incubation pod was empty." "The nursery chamber," Nethara repeated slowly, "is protected by 17 force fields. It sits at the center of this palace, surrounded by 3,000 guards. The walls are made of materials that can survive a supernova. And you are telling me that my daughter simply vanished?" "We found a breach in the outer hall, Empress. Small, perhaps caused by debris from the storm. Something, or someone, came through." Nethara finally moved. She walked toward the massive window that looked out over her capital city. Below, millions of Valari went about their lives, unaware that their world was about to change. "Lumi," she said quietly. The name meant little light in the old tongue. It was what she called her youngest daughter, the only offspring she had produced in over a century. Valari children were rare, precious. A princess was worth more than planets. "There is more, Empress." She did not turn around. "Speak." During the storm, a human cargo ship drifted into restricted space. Our sensors were damaged. We did not detect them until after they had already left. The guard paused. "The timing matches the breach." For a long moment, there was only silence. The advisors looked at each other with growing dread. Humans, of all the species in the galaxy, humans were the strangest. They were small, weak, and lived such short lives that the Valari barely considered them worth noticing. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They should have been prey, but somehow humans kept surviving. They spread across the stars like weeds. They made friends with species that should have eaten them. They walked into danger with smiles on their faces and somehow walked out again. The Valari had never bothered conquering Earth because humans seemed so insignificant. Perhaps that had been a mistake. "Find them," Nethara said. Her voice had changed. It was no longer soft. It was ice and fire and the promise of pain beyond imagination. "Find that ship. Find my daughter. And bring me the humans who took her. And if the princess has been harmed?" Nethara turned. Her eyes blazed with a light that made even her bravest warriors step back. "Then I will personally visit Earth, and when I am done, there will be nothing left but ash and screaming." She raised one clawed hand, and the air itself seemed to tremble. "Summon the war fleet?" "All of it. 300 ships. I want that human vessel found within the week." "Empress, 300 ships for one cargo freighter? Is that not excessive?" "Excessive?" Nethara walked toward the advisor who had spoken. He tried to stand his ground. He failed. "My daughter is out there, alone, helpless, in the hands of creatures who probably do not even know what she is. She is not even fully hatched. She needs warmth, specific nutrients, careful handling. Without proper care, she will die within days. She stopped inches from the advisor's face. Tell me again that 300 ships is excessive. He could not speak. He could only shake his head. Good. Nathara moved past him toward the door. I will lead the fleet myself. Prepare my flagship. The advisors rushed to follow her as she strode through the palace corridors. Servants and guards pressed themselves against walls to let her pass. Word was already spreading through the capital. The princess was missing. The Empress was going to war. In the hangar bay. The flagship Eternal Vengeance waited. It was the largest warship ever built by any species, a mountain of metal and weapons capable of destroying entire planets. Nathara walked up the boarding ramp without slowing down. Track the human ship, she ordered as she entered the command center. I want to know where they came from, where they are going, and what they had for breakfast. I want to know the names of everyone on board. I want to know their fears, their weaknesses, their families. Yes, Empress. She settled into the command chair, her claws gripping the armrests hard enough to leave marks. Around her, the crew worked in terrified silence. The humans had taken her daughter. They probably did not even understand what they had done. Humans were like that, stumbling through the universe, causing chaos wherever they went, never quite understanding the consequences of their actions. But they would understand soon. Nathara closed her eyes and thought of Lumi. So small, so fragile. Her shell had not even hardened yet. She was just a baby, barely aware of the world around her. Did she know her mother was coming? Did she know that an entire empire was being mobilized just to bring her home? I am coming, little light, Nathara whispered. Hold on. I am coming. The engines of the Eternal Vengeance roared to life. One by one, 300 warships rose from the surface and formed into attack formation. It was the largest fleet assembled in a generation. And it was all hunting one small human ship that had no idea it was being followed, somewhere in the void of space. Aboard a rusty cargo freighter called the Wandering Star, 7 humans were going about their ordinary lives. They did not know that they were carrying the most valuable cargo in the galaxy. They did not know that an empire wanted them dead. They did not know that everything was about to change. The Wandering Star was not a beautiful ship. She was old, patched together with spare parts from a dozen different vessels, and she made strange noises that the crew had learned to ignore. But she flew, and she kept her people alive, and that was enough. James Cooper had been the ship's engineer for 5 years. He was 32 years old, with tired eyes and hands that were always stained with grease. He had grown up on a farming colony and had never planned to spend his life in space. But life had a way of pushing people in unexpected directions. And now the Wandering Star was the closest thing he had to a home. It was 3 days after the solar storm when James found the egg. He had been checking the cargo hold for damage. The storm had knocked them around pretty badly, and he wanted to make sure nothing important had broken. That was when he saw it, a smooth oval object about the size of a football, wedged between 2 cargo containers. What the heck? James muttered, kneeling down to get a closer look. The object was beautiful. Its surface shimmered with colors that seemed to shift when he moved: purple, blue, silver, gold. It was warm to the touch, almost hot, and it seemed to pulse slightly, like a heartbeat. James knew he should report it to Captain Hayes immediately. He knew that picking up strange objects in space was dangerous. He knew all of this, but something about the egg called to him. It felt lonely, scared, like it needed help. Okay, little guy, he said softly, carefully lifting the egg. Let's get you somewhere safe. He took the egg to his quarters and placed it on his bed, surrounded by blankets to keep it warm. Then he sat down to watch it, not sure what he was expecting. He fell asleep, waiting. When James woke up the next morning, the egg was broken. Pieces of shell were scattered across his blanket. And sitting in the middle of the mess was the strangest creature he had ever seen. It was small, maybe 6 inches long. Its body was covered in soft, lavender-colored skin that had not yet hardened into a shell. It had 6 tiny legs, 2 little arms, and wings that were folded against its back like wet paper. Its head was too big for its body, and its eyes were enormous dark purple pools that took up most of its face. It looked up at James and made a sound. A tiny, high-pitched chirp that somehow conveyed everything. Fear, confusion, hunger, hope. "Oh no," James whispered. "Oh no, no, no." The creature chirped again. It tried to walk toward him but stumbled on its new legs. It fell on its face, made a sad little noise, and tried again. James's heart melted. "Okay," he said, reaching out slowly. "Okay, it's all right. I've got you." He picked up the creature carefully, cradling it in his hands. It was so light, so fragile. He could feel its tiny heart beating against his palm fast, scared, desperate. He soothed. "You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." The creature looked up at him. Its huge eyes seemed to search his face, looking for something. Then, apparently satisfied, it crawled up his arm, across his shoulder, and settled on his chest, directly over his heart. Within seconds, it was asleep. James sat very still, afraid to move. He could feel the creature's tiny body rising and falling with each breath. He could feel its warmth soaking through his shirt. And he could feel something else, a strange sense of connection, as if the creature had chosen him for a reason. "I'm going to call you Button," he said quietly, "because you're small and cute, and you've attached yourself to me like a button on a shirt." Button did not respond. She just kept sleeping, her tiny claws hooked into his sweater, her face pressed against his heartbeat. Over the next 4 days, James learned several things about his new companion. First, Button would not leave him alone. If he tried to put her down, she cried a heartbreaking sound that made everyone on the ship come running. If he tried to give her to someone else, she scrambled back to him as fast as her little legs could carry her. Second, Button loved honey. She would eat other things, fruit, bread, some kind of protein paste. But honey made her purr. Actually purr like a cat, which was strange because she clearly was not a cat. Third, Button slept a lot. But she only slept well when she was on James's chest, listening to his heartbeat. If he put her in a box or a nest or anywhere else, she would wake up crying within minutes. But pressed against his heart, she slept for hours, peaceful and content. The crew did not know what to think. "She's clearly intelligent," said Dr. Michelle Park, the ship's medic, after examining Button on the second day. "Her brain structure is incredibly complex, but I can't identify her species. She's not in any database I have access to. She's also clearly not human," Captain Linda Hayes said. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been a captain for 20 years and had seen a lot of strange things. But this was new, which means she belongs to someone, and that someone might come looking. "She's just a baby," James protested. "Look at her. She can barely walk. She's not dangerous." "I didn't say she was dangerous. I said someone might come looking for her." The captain's expression softened slightly. "James, I know you've gotten attached, but we need to be careful. We don't know what species she is. We don't know where she came from. We don't know if her parents are peaceful or if they're going to show up with weapons and demands." James looked down at Button, who had woken up during the conversation and was now watching everyone with curious eyes. When she saw him looking, she chirped happily and nuzzled against his chest. "I'll be careful," he promised. "But I'm not abandoning her." She chose me. I don't know why, but she did. And I'm not going to let her down. Captain Hayes sighed. Fine, but if something goes wrong, I'm holding you responsible. Yes, ma'am. That night, James lay in his bunk with Button sleeping on his chest. The ship hummed quietly around them. Stars drifted past the small window. I don't know who you are, Button, James whispered. I don't know where you came from or what you're going to become, but I promise I'll take care of you. Whatever happens. Button stirred in her sleep. One tiny claw tightened on his sweater. James smiled and closed his eyes. He had no idea that 300 warships were hunting them across the galaxy. He had no idea that the small creature on his chest was a princess worth more than planets. He had no idea that his simple act of kindness, picking up a lonely egg and keeping it warm, was about to change the course of history. All he knew was that something small and scared had needed help. And he had helped it. That was enough. The alarm started screaming at exactly 3 in the morning. Ship time. James woke up instantly, his hand going to Button to make sure she was safe. She was awake too, her big eyes wide with fear, her tiny body trembling against his chest. It's okay, he said, though he was not sure it was. Stay with me. He ran to the bridge, Button clinging to his sweater. The rest of the crew was already there, staring at the main view screen with expressions of pure horror. Space was full of ships, not just a few ships. Not a dozen. Hundreds of them, surrounding the wandering star in every direction. They were enormous, each one the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They blocked out the stars themselves. What? What is that? Whispered David Kim, the communications officer. His face was white as paper. Captain Hayes stood at the center of the bridge, her jaw tight. Valari warships. The whole fleet, by the looks of it. Valari? James felt his stomach drop. Everyone knew about the Valari. They were the most powerful empire in the galaxy. They had conquered countless worlds. They were ruthless, ancient, and completely without mercy. And they had just surrounded a tiny cargo ship with enough firepower to destroy a planet. They're hailing us, David said. His hands were shaking as he worked the controls. What do I do? Answer them, Captain Hayes said. We don't have a choice. The view screen flickered. And then James saw her. Empress Nithara filled the screen. She was massive, her body barely fit in the frame. Her purple shell gleamed like polished jewels. Her 4 arms were crossed over her chest, claws catching the light. And her eyes, her terrible, ancient eyes, seemed to look directly into James's soul. Humans, she said. Her voice came through the translator cold and flat, but there was something underneath it. Something burning. You have taken something precious from me. Return my daughter, and I will grant you swift deaths instead of the centuries of agony you deserve. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Daughter. James looked down at Button. Button looked up at him. Her tiny face was confused and scared. She did not understand what was happening. She just knew that something was wrong, and she pressed herself closer to James's heart. Oh no, James whispered. Captain Hayes turned to look at him. Her eyes went to the small creature on his chest. Understanding dawned on her face, followed quickly by despair. James, she said quietly, tell me that's not what I think it is. I didn't know. His voice was barely audible. I found her in the cargo hold. I thought she was... I don't know what I thought. She was just an egg. A lost egg. I was trying to help. On the screen, the Empress was waiting. Her patience was clearly running out. Human Captain, Nithara said. I am not in the habit of repeating myself. My daughter, now. Captain Hayes straightened her shoulders. She was terrified. James could see it in her eyes, but she was still the captain. Your Majesty, she said carefully. "We did not knowingly take your daughter. We found her after the solar storm. We had no idea who she was or where she came from. Ignorance is not an excuse. I understand. We're prepared to return her immediately. We never meant any harm." Nathara leaned forward. "Return her? You speak as if it were simple. As if you could simply hand her over like cargo." Her eyes narrowed. "Where is she? Show me my daughter." The crew turned to look at James. He felt frozen in place, his heart pounding so hard the buttons stirred against his chest. "James," Captain Hayes said gently, "you need to show her." Slowly, James stepped forward. He walked until he was in front of the view screen, until the Empress could see him clearly. Until she could see the small lavender creature clinging to his sweater. Her face buried in his chest. The Empress went still. For a long moment, nothing happened. The entire bridge was silent. 300 warships hung in space, their weapons armed and ready. The fate of 7 humans balanced on the edge of a knife. Then Nathara spoke. Her voice was different now, quieter, confused. "She is sleeping?" James looked down. Button had indeed fallen asleep, despite all the noise and fear. She was pressed against his heart, her tiny claws hooked into his sweater, her breathing slow and peaceful. "She always sleeps like this," James said. His voice was shaking. "She likes the heartbeat. I don't know why. She won't sleep anywhere else. Only here." Nathara stared. Her compound eyes, which could see into spectrums humans could not imagine, studied the scene before her. The small, fragile human. The tiny princess. The impossible bond between them. "This is not possible," she said slowly. "The Lari young do not bond with other species. They do not sleep peacefully outside their incubation pods. They do not." She stopped. Her claws tightened on the arms of her command chair. "What have you done to her?" "Nothing." James took a step forward, desperate to explain. "I swear, I haven't done anything. I found her egg in the cargo hold. I kept it warm because it felt right. When she hatched, she crawled onto my chest and fell asleep. That's all. I just took care of her. Fed her, kept her warm. Sang to her when she cried. Sang to her old songs. Lullabies my grandmother taught me when I was a kid. She seems to like them." The Empress said nothing. Her eyes remained fixed on the sleeping princess. "I didn't know who she was," James continued. "I didn't know she was your daughter or princess or anything. I just knew she was small and alone and scared. And I couldn't leave her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I couldn't leave her." For a long time, nobody spoke. The crew waited for death. The warships waited for orders. The Empress waited for something only she understood. Then Nathara made a decision. "I am coming aboard," she announced. "Alone. Lower your shields." "Your Majesty," one of her advisors protested. "This could be a trap." Silence. The word cut through the air like a blade. "I have 300 ships aimed at that vessel. If anything happens to me, they have orders to fire. There is no trap the humans could possibly spring." She stood up from her command chair. Even on screen, her size was terrifying. "Prepare for my arrival." And human, her eyes locked onto James. "Do not wake my daughter. If you have somehow given her peace, I would see it continue. For now." The screen went dark. Captain Hayes turned to James. "Well," she said weakly, "this is going to be interesting." James looked down at Button, at Princess Lumi still sleeping peacefully on his chest. "Yeah," he agreed. "That's one word for it." 10 minutes later, the Empress came aboard. And everything changed. The airlock opened with a hiss, and Empress Nathara stepped onto the wandering star. She had to bend almost in half to fit through the human-sized corridors. Her shell scraped against the walls. Her claws left marks on the floor. She was a creature built for palaces and battlefields, not the cramped hallways of a cargo freighter. Behind her came a single guard, another Velari, slightly smaller, but just as deadly. He kept his hand on his weapon and his eyes on the humans. James stood at the end of the corridor with Button still sleeping on his chest. The crew stood behind him, trying very hard not to look terrified. Nethera straightened as much as the ceiling would allow. She looked at James. She looked at the small form clinging to his sweater. And she began to walk toward him. Each step shook the floor. Each step brought her closer. James wanted to run. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to flee, to hide, to get away from this apex predator that could kill him without effort. But he did not run. He stood his ground. Because Button was still sleeping, and he had promised to protect her. The Empress stopped 3 feet away. Up close, she was even more terrifying. James could see the individual segments of her shell, the razor edges of her claws, the countless tiny lenses that made up her compound eyes. He could smell something alien, not unpleasant, but strange, like flowers from another world. "She sleeps," Nethera said quietly. "Even now, even with me so close. She sleeps." "She's tired," James replied. His voice came out steadier than he expected. "She always sleeps a lot. The doctor says it's normal for babies. It is not normal for Velari young." The Empress lowered herself to one knee, bringing her face closer to the sleeping princess. "Our children do not sleep peacefully. They are always alert, always aware of danger. It is how we survive. How we have always survived." She reached out one claw that could cut through steel and very, very gently touched her daughter's back. Button stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, still heavy with sleep. She saw the enormous face before her, the familiar features of her own kind. "Lumi," Nethera whispered. "My little light. I have found you." Button chirped. It was a happy sound, a sound of recognition. She knew her mother. Some deep instinct told her that this was family, this was blood, this was belonging. But she did not leave James's chest. She reached out one tiny leg toward Nethera. She chirped again, but her other legs remained firmly wrapped around James's sweater, holding on tight. "She wants both," Dr. Michelle Park said softly. She had been watching from behind the captain, her medical training helping her understand what was happening. "She's bonded with James, but she recognizes you. She doesn't want to choose." Nethera's eyes shifted to the doctor. "Bonded? What do you mean?" "Imprinting. It's common in many species. The first thing a newborn sees becomes their anchor, I suppose. Their safe place." James was the first thing Lumi saw when she hatched. To her, he represents safety and warmth and comfort. Velari do not imprint. With respect, Your Majesty, she's a baby. She doesn't know what Velari do or don't do. She only knows what she feels. Nethera was silent for a long moment. Her claws could have killed everyone in the corridor without effort. Her ships could have destroyed the wandering star with a single shot. She had the power of an empire behind her. But none of that power could make her daughter let go of a human sweater. "You," she said to James. "Explain. Explain everything. From the moment you found her." So James explained. He told her about finding the egg in the cargo hold, about keeping it warm, about watching it hatch. He told her about Button, about Lumi, crawling onto his chest and falling asleep. He told her about the honey, the lullabies, the way she cried if he put her down. He told her everything because there was nothing to hide. When he finished, Nethera stood slowly. She towered over him, blocking out the light, filling the corridor with her presence. "You found a strange egg in your cargo hold," she said. "And instead of destroying it or selling it or leaving it to die, you kept it warm. Yes, you watched a creature hatch, a creature you did not recognize. A creature that could have been dangerous, and you picked it up and held it. She was small and scared. I couldn't just leave her. You fed her. You sang to her. You let her sleep on your chest, listening to your heart. She seemed to like it. It made her happy. Nathara shook her head slowly. I do not understand your species, she said. You are weak. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. You live such brief lives. And yet you do these things, these small, impossible things that we cannot. I don't understand. Your heartbeat. Nathara placed one claw against her own chest. We Valari have no heartbeat. Our bodies are cold. Our blood is still. We are efficient, perfect, designed for survival. But we cannot give our children this rhythm, this warmth, this living drum. She looked at Lumi, still clinging to James. Our nurseries are silent, she continued. Climate-controlled, sterile, safe. We thought that was what children needed. Safety, protection from danger. But perhaps... She paused, as if the words were difficult. Perhaps they need something else. Something we cannot provide. She just wanted someone to hold her, James said quietly. That's all. She was alone and scared, and she wanted someone to hold her and tell her everything would be okay. And you did that. I tried. Nathara reached out again. This time, she did not touch her daughter. She touched James' one claw resting gently on his shoulder, light as a feather despite its deadly edge. In 300 years of rule, she said, I have conquered worlds. I have destroyed enemies beyond counting. I have built an empire that spans the stars. But I have never been able to make my daughter sleep peacefully. Not once. Not ever. She withdrew her claw. And you, a small, fragile human with nothing but warmth and kindness, you did it in a single night. James did not know what to say. So he said nothing. Nathara turned to her guard. Return to the flagship. Tell the fleet to stand down. There will be no attack today. Your Majesty? Do it. The guard hesitated, then bowed and left through the airlock. Captain Hayes stepped forward carefully. Your Majesty, what happens now? We didn't mean to take your daughter. We're willing to return her, to cooperate, to do whatever you need. Nathara looked at Lumi. The princess had fallen asleep again, her face pressed against James's heart, her tiny body rising and falling with his breath. Return her, Nathara repeated. Yes, that was the plan. Take her back to the palace, to the nursery, to the cold silence where she has never slept well. She paused. But I am beginning to wonder if that would be a kindness or a cruelty. I don't understand. Neither do I, human. Neither do I. The Empress moved toward the airlock, then stopped. I must think on this. You will follow my flagship to the throne world. You will not be harmed. You have my word. And James? Captain Hayes asked. And Lumi? Nathara looked back at the sleeping princess and the human who held her. They will not be separated. Not yet, perhaps not ever. Her compound eyes gleamed with something that might have been wonder. Your species continues to surprise me, humans. I am beginning to think that is not a bad thing. She left. The airlock closed behind her. The crew let out their breath. Well, Captain Hayes said weakly, we're not dead. That's something. James looked down at Lumi, still sleeping peacefully on his chest. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, he whispered. Whatever comes next. I promise. Button chirped softly in her sleep dot, and somewhere in the vast depths of space, 300 warships turned off their weapons and began to escort a tiny cargo freighter toward the heart of an empire. The throne world of the Valari Empire was called Netherus, named after the first empress who had united the species 1,000 years ago. From space, it looked like a jewel-green continents, blue oceans, and cities that sparkled with golden light. James pressed his face against the window of the wandering star as they descended through the atmosphere. Lumi was awake on his chest, chirping excitedly at the sight of her home. "You know this place, don't you?" James murmured. "This is where you were born." Lumi chirped again and nuzzled against him. Whatever memories she had of this world, they were not enough to make her let go. They landed in a hangar large enough to hold 1,000 human ships. Valari soldiers lined the walkways, their armor gleaming, their weapons ready. But they did not point those weapons at the humans. They simply watched, curious, as the strange visitors followed the Empress through the palace. The palace itself was overwhelming. Everything was huge doorways that rose 50 feet high, hallways wide enough for tanks, ceilings that disappeared into shadow. James felt like an ant walking through a cathedral built for giants. But the Valari they passed did not look at him with hostility. They looked at Lumi, sleeping on his chest, and their eyes filled with something that looked almost like wonder. Finally, they reached the throne room. It was the largest space James had ever seen, a cavern of black crystal and golden light that seemed to stretch forever in every direction. Empress Nathara sat upon her throne, surrounded by her advisors and nobles. They had been arguing about something, but they fell silent when the humans entered. "The human," one advisor said with clear distaste. "You actually brought him here? To the heart of our empire?" "I did." Nethra's voice was calm. "And you will treat him with respect, Lord Victor. He has done what none of you could do. He has given my daughter peace. Your Majesty, this is madness. He is an alien, a human. They are barely above animals. Enough." The word cut through the room like a knife. "I did not ask for your opinion. I asked for your silence." Lord Victor fell silent, though his eyes burned with anger. Nathara rose from her throne and descended the steps. She walked toward James, and once again, he felt the overwhelming presence of her. But this time, he was not afraid. He had seen behind the mask. He had seen a mother worried about her daughter. "James Cooper," she said formally, loud enough for the entire throne room to hear. "You found my daughter when she was lost. You kept her warm when she was cold. You fed her, sang to her, and gave her your heartbeat when she needed comfort. For this, you have my gratitude." The room went still. Gratitude was not a word the Valari Empress used often. "Your Majesty," James said carefully, "I didn't do anything special. I just took care of her. Anyone would have done the same." "No." Nathara shook her head. "No, they would not. I have studied your species since you came aboard my flagship. I have learned much. Humans do many cruel things to each other: wars, betrayals, acts of terrible violence. You are not perfect. You are not even particularly good." She paused. "But you are kind. In small ways, in moments that do not seem to matter, you are kind. You pick up lost eggs and keep them warm. You sing to crying children. You give your heartbeat to frightened babies who are not even your own species. These things seem small. They are not." She turned to address the throne room. "I have ruled this empire for 300 years. In that time, I have conquered worlds, destroyed enemies, built monuments that will last forever. I thought this was strength. I thought this was what made us great." Her compound eyes swept across the assembled nobles. "But I could not make my daughter sleep peacefully. I could not give her comfort. I could not do what this small, fragile human did without even thinking about it." She let that sink in. "Perhaps we are not as great as we believed." The room erupted in whispers. Lords and ladies, generals and admirals, all of them shocked by words they had never expected to hear from their empress. "Your Majesty," Lord Victor spoke again, his voice trembling with outrage. "Surely you cannot suggest that we should learn from humans? They are nothing compared to us." "They are different from us," Nathara corrected. "And sometimes, different is exactly what we need. She turned back to James. I have a proposal for you, James Cooper. My daughter has bonded with you. She needs you in a way that no Valari can provide. I could take her from you by force, but I do not think that would be good for her. And her welfare is all that matters to me. What kind of proposal? Stay here on my throne world, in the palace. You will have rooms, food, anything you need. And you will help care for my daughter. You will give her the warmth and comfort that she needs, the heartbeat that helps her sleep. In return, I will give your species something they have never had. What's that? Nathara smiled. It was a strange expression on her alien face, but somehow it looked genuine. An ally. The Valari Empire does not make friends. We make subjects. But for you, for your people, I will make an exception. Humanity will have our protection, our technology, our knowledge. We will open doors that have been closed to your kind forever. James stared at her. He was a cargo ship engineer. He had grown up on a farming colony. He was nobody special. And yet here he was, being offered an alliance that would change human history. He looked down at Lumi, who was watching him with her big purple eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Nathara suggested. It is the simplest word in any language. But what about my crew, my captain, the wandering star? They may stay or go as they choose. They will be rewarded for returning my daughter, regardless. But you, James Cooper, you I would like to keep. James thought about his life. His small quarters on the ship. His endless repairs and maintenance. His lonely nights staring at stars. Then he thought about Lumi, her tiny chirps of happiness, her peaceful face when she slept. The way she held on to him like he was the most important thing in the universe. Yes, he said. I'll stay. Lumi chirped and nuzzled against his chest, as if she understood. The throne room fell silent. Then, slowly, Empress Nathara began to laugh. It was a strange sound, clicking and rumbling, and somehow warm all at once. My advisors think I've gone mad, she said. Perhaps I have. Perhaps kindness is a kind of madness. But I find I do not care. She placed one claw gently on James's shoulder. Welcome to the Valari Empire. James Cooper. Welcome to our family. May your heartbeat echo through our halls for many years to come. And so it came to pass that a cargo ship engineer from a farming colony became the caretaker of an alien princess. He lived in a palace of crystal and gold, surrounded by creatures that could have killed him without effort. He sang lullabies to a child who was not his own kind. He gave his heartbeat to a baby who needed it. And the Valari Empire, which had conquered 1,000 worlds through strength and violence, learned something new. They learned that sometimes the greatest power is not the power to destroy. It is the power to comfort, the power to nurture, the power to hold a scared child close and whisper, I've got you. Humans spread across the galaxy under Valari protection. The two species, so different in every way, became the closest of allies. And whenever anyone asked how it happened, how such an impossible friendship came to be, the Valari would tell them about the human whose heartbeat sang a princess to sleep. They feared us for our warships. They loved us for our lullabies. And in the end, it was the lullabies that mattered most. This is a story humans tell their children now when they put them to bed. They tell them about James Cooper and Princess Lumi, about warmth and kindness and the power of a heartbeat. They tell them that being gentle is not the same as being weak. They tell them that sometimes the smallest acts of love can change the universe. And in a palace far across the stars, a little princess sleeps peacefully on a human's chest, dreaming of honey and lullabies and the steady rhythm of a heart that says, I've got you. Always. Forever. I've got you.